It took Logan about 20 minutes to clear out the group of goblins. He had defeated them all except for one goblin in the very middle, who seemed to be their leader. The leader goblin held a large pickaxe in his hands. His weapon appeared to be of much higher quality than his counterparts. In total, Logan had gained 5,000 experience points, 1 silver coin, and 65 bronze coins. One of the goblin scouts he killed earlier had dropped an item called Lesser Healing Potion, which would be useful in a pinch. Logan had leveled up twice and was now level 9, but he did not use his stat points just yet. He would only use them if he felt like he absolutely needed to. He had to be strategic. One stat point at the right time could save his life. Logan's eyes focused on the goblin leader. The goblin leader's stats popped up in Logan's field of vision. His name was Goblin Foreman Grisnak, and he was a boss monster. He was strong, with 3,000 experience points and a high attack power of 180. His agility was almost the same as Logan's. Logan was excited about the prospect of fighting a boss monster, because it meant he had another chance at collecting rare loot. He moved his hand to the hilt of his sword and sized the monster up carefully. Logan was nervous. This was the first time he had to fight a boss-level monster alone. These types of monsters are usually a group effort, but I haven't had the chance to fully test my abilities yet. This is the perfect chance. Logan didn't waste any more time. He kicked off with his right foot and launched himself at the boss monster, Goblin Foreman Grisnak. He started with his strongest attack, Sword of Destruction! Logan's sword glowed with a blue light as he struck Goblin Foreman Grisnak directly across his neck. Goblin Foreman Grisnak became suddenly alert. He made strange noises, as though he was trying to spew insults at Logan. The monster managed to adjust its position just in time. He avoided the sword flying towards his neck, but took the hit on his chest. He was greatly injured by the blow. The spirit voice announced Goblin Foreman Grisnak's stats.
Goblin Foreman Grisnak has lost 1,000 experience points. 2,000 experience points remaining.
Wow, even though I caught him by surprise, he reacted quickly. Looks like boss monsters are quite good at protecting their vitals, even when completely caught off guard. Logan continued his assault and used his flickering steps move. Logan's shadows flickered around the battlefield, confusing Goblin Foreman Grisnak. The goblin lashed out with his large pickaxe, but Logan was just too fast. He only managed to hit Logan's shadow. Logan continued fighting with his sword, slashing repeatedly against the goblin boss's green body. The goblin monster took a few more hits to his energy. He was frustrated by this human player's abilities, but he stayed strong. The monster opened its mouth and wailed, a strange, piercing sound. Its goblin call was now activated. Logan squeezed his eyes shut. The noise was unbearable, and Logan's ears twitched. Logan had a bad feeling that something worse was about to happen. There was a small pathway a few feet away from the cave wall. It was not big enough for a human to fit through, but a goblin could fit easily. A few seconds passed, and a goblin worker scurried down that small open pathway, pickaxe in hand. Logan noticed the goblin worker rushing over towards him, but he was still a few feet away. Logan still had 16 seconds remaining on his flickering steps move, and he had to make the best of it. He kept an eye on the approaching goblin worker while steadily attacking the boss monster. The idea was to weaken the boss monster as much as possible before the other goblin could join the fight. Meanwhile, in Opal Town, many players gathered inside an office in one of the small buildings. The building was the temporary headquarters of the Blue Oasis Gaming Guild. Blue Oasis was one of the top 10 gaming guilds in the country. A player rushed into the building with an excited look on his face. "Captain, I found someone who says they have information on the player called Logan. You know, the one who cleared the first world boss." The man who the player addressed as Captain sat at the desk in the office, nodding thoughtfully. A sturdy man with brown hair and green eyes sat at the desk in the office. He wore ocean blue armor with light blue markings all over it. He wasn't conventionally handsome, but he gave off an air of confidence. The man's name was Neil, and the guild leader of Blue Oasis had asked him to look into the world boss spawn point, as well as Logan, the player who cleared the first world boss.
How did this player find all of that out so fast? Can I trust him?
Neil looked up at the player who hurried in.
Is your information from a reliable source, John?
Neil wanted information, but he wouldn't just believe anything he heard. As one of the 7 captains belonging to the Blue Oasis Guild, he had a responsibility to make sure things were done efficiently and thoroughly. John breathed heavily. "Captain, I can guarantee you that the information is true. There's even something incredibly rare involved." John waved his hand towards the entrance of the room, as though calling for someone to come in. "Captain, the player you were about to meet said that he and his friends were in a party with the player Logan. Player Logan shamelessly kicked them out when the world boss was low on energy, and then sneakily attacked to kill them by taking all of the loot for himself and his 2 other friends." John was furious at the injustice that had taken place. Neil turned his attention to the player who had just entered the room and nodded at him.
Is what he said true?
The player John had brought in stepped forward into the light. It was none other than Mick. Mick cleared his throat before he spoke. "Yes, it's all true. Those shameless cowards took everything for themselves. That player Logan even had a rare weapon. I can show you where the world boss spawn is, but I have one request. I want justice for what happened to me." Neil's eyes narrowed, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He gestured at the seat across from his desk.
Interesting. Please tell me more.
Logan was still locked in an intense battle with the goblin foreman Grisnak. He had no idea what was happening in Opaltown. His flickering steps move had run out a while ago, but he managed to deal with the 2 goblin worker monsters that spawned. Logan had sustained some damage, but he had also dealt significant damage to the goblin foreman Grisnak. But the goblin workers kept spawning. The spirit voice announced their stats.
Goblin Foreman Grisnak has 1,000 of 3,000 energy points remaining. Player Logan has 295 of 500 energy points remaining.
I never expected the goblin call to be this troublesome. There was a sudden and unexpected explosion. Logan sustained 200 points of damage and felt confused. He was fading fast, and his agility was compromised. He needed to end the battle with his next attack. Logan raised his sword and rushed Goblin Foreman Grisnak. The monster prepared to block the sword strike, but Logan suddenly changed the direction of the attack. He aimed at the goblin's neck. Goblin Foreman Grisnak cried out in his strange goblin language, as if he were trying to call for another goblin worker. But it was too late. Logan's sword was on his neck. The spirit voice chimed.
Goblin Foreman Grisnak has sustained a critical hit. 0 of 3,000 energy points remaining.
Logan grinned. He had done it. He had finally defeated a boss monster by himself. However, the game indicated that the quest was still not completed. That indicated the possibility of there being more than one boss at this stage. The system alert chimed, and the spirit voice congratulated Logan.
Congratulations, player Logan. You have defeated Goblin Foreman Grisnak.